I'd like to welcome you all to the Nonprofit Culture Success Biweekly online meetup. I'm Russell Dennis, your host, and today we're going to talk a little bit about who's responsible for fundraising. And so we've had there's a lot of information out there on that and a lot of discussion on it. And a lot of organizations lean heavily toward the board. That's not always the best scenario. So I've been involved in some really interesting discussions on LinkedIn. But before we start, I'd like to take a minute to have you folks introduce yourselves and tell the audience who you are and about your project and what you hope to get out of the show. So we'll begin with you, Ann.
I'm Ann Lorimore. My organization is Child Empowerment Foundation. The idea of it is to show kids their options, kids who are underserved, and then help them, give them the tools and help them do whatever they want to do in life and then give back. I've got a few things in place already, and I've got dreams for a lot more. So it will take funds.
Thank you, Ann. How about you, May? You want to tell us a little bit about yourself and your project?
Yeah. I don't have an organization yet, but I would like to have one pretty soon about musicians.
Okay. Excellent.
Thank you.
Thanks. So yeah, with regards to fundraising, a lot of people rely on their boards of directors to help them with that. And so the interesting discussion that I was involved in a few weeks ago on LinkedIn was about board member involvement. We just had Flo Lattery come in. Hi, Flo.
Hey, Ann.
Hi, Flo.
Hey, Russell.
Good to see you there. We just got done with introductions, so can you introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your project?
Okay, my name is Flo Lattery, and I live in Castle Rock, Colorado, and my project is for providing support for kids who will eventually age out of the foster care system.
Awesome. Andrea just popped in. You want to introduce yourself and tell everybody a little bit about your project?
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, I couldn't really hear the audio until a few seconds ago.
Okay.
Glad to be here and meet you all. My name is Andrea Fasoli, and I was talking to Russell a few weeks back regarding this project that I've started back in January of this year, 2017. So the whole project is called Lighting the Warm Heart of Africa. And the objective is basically to have 70 gravity lights, which is a product, a very innovative technology made by the Gravity Light Foundation. And the whole purpose of the product is to basically generate electricity lighting from the force of gravity. So what you have, and I'll be able to provide the links as well, as much information as I can to you guys on the chat. But basically what it does is that you have a bag and you fill it up with whatever kind of, rocks, dirt, soil, whatever material you have there at your disposal for a rural community. And when you pull up the lever with the chain, the bag goes up to the main unit that produces the light. And as it falls down, it creates a dynamo effect that produces electricity. So it's very, very easy to use. It is transportable. So for rural communities in Africa, it would be a revolution for them to be able to become energy independent. The LED light lasts for about 2 years. So that's something amazing to be able to, not waste money on kerosene lamps, candles, woods, but actually to be able to invest that money in more meaningful projects. And regarding my own project that's in Malawi, which is a rural community just outside the capital of the nation. And it would comprise 70 lights, which would provide enough energy, enough lighting for about 2,000 people, including in 7 villages. But yeah, that's sort of like in a nutshell, the core of the project.
Excellent. Well, welcome. Glad to have you here. And so if you want to put the information in the link, we're recording this. So I'll put the recording up so that everybody can see it. But Absolutely. If you want to leave a link for where people can get more information about your project as we go on, put it in the chat box, and that'll be in the broadcast. So our primary discussion today is on who's responsible for fundraising. And a lot of reliance has been put on board members. But even more disturbing, a lot of that has been put on the development director in many organizations. And there was a really big study that Compass Point Nonprofit Services did. They wrote the report in 2014. They finished it. They had 2,700 nonprofits in the sample. And they were varying sizes with smaller budgets, some up with budgets in excess of $10 million. And they had some pretty critical findings. And those started with the fact that there was a heavy over-reliance on the development director, one person in the organization, to do all of the fundraising. So there was sort of an attitude that, well, we've got this super grant gal or this super grant guy, and they're supposed to be able to raise all of this money. So it doesn't really involve us. And there was a lot of pushback. And a lot of organizations, the report pretty much concluded that there needed to be a shift in what they call a culture of fundraising, which is shared responsibility for the fundraising instead of relying on one person. They did some surveys around the development director and attitudes around the boards of directors. One of the really key findings that more than 3/4 of the executive directors of nonprofits said that the board wasn't engaged enough. 75% of the total sample of 2,700, and for the organizations with budgets under $1 million, 82% said that their board members weren't engaged enough. So that's really, really tough. The development directors in the smaller organizations, you found that they surveyed them and found out that upwards of 46% of them were planning to leave their jobs within 2 years.
Wow.
So, and the heavy turnover is important because these smaller organizations don't have the funds. So they also had information in the report on median salaries, and they ranged anywhere from 49,000 to the smaller ones to over 100,000 for the larger. But there's really a lot of reliance on those people to actually do all of the work. And as far as information, 23% of the organizations had no donor database, and 31% of the small ones had no donor database. So they weren't really tracking how they were going about getting money. So they had no way to track it. And so the big trouble, though, is really in what they call that culture, and it starts with the leadership. And leadership drives everything. So if you don't have that shared fundraising responsibility, it's hard to get things done. And so I was in a discussion on LinkedIn maybe about a month or 3 weeks ago, and somebody posed the question, how much responsibility do board members have for fundraising? And it got a little emotional. There were some people that stated very forcefully, hey, I'm here to help make sure the organization's in compliance. It's not my job to raise money. So it went everywhere from none on the spectrum to complete. The reality is that everybody has a little bit of responsibility in there. And that's kind of where most organizations sit. But there's a lot of talk when I go to conferences and meetings. People are saying, well, I'm not getting enough out of my board. And either the board's under-engaged or whatever. But it should not be completely up to the board members to come up with this funding. It should be a shared responsibility, I think. Although it is a little difficult. in the minds of some people to reconcile having somebody in front of them asking for money for their organization. And when the question is posed, how much did you donate? And
Right.
if you're not going to write a check for the organization you're working with, it may give people some pause.
Mm-hmm.
But what people are plugging into are your networks, your expertise, and other things. So this was what that discussion we had a few weeks ago, as far as win-win-win. That's what that addresses. It's making sure that we have understand what it is that everybody wants out of the arrangement, and finding people who are aligned and making sure that we have plans that are sufficient so that we can outline what that level of commitment is going to look like that we ask for people.
Right.
I have a question and a comment.
Okay.
The question is, shouldn't a founder or even the board, well, when you invite someone to be on your board, my expectation is that those board members have a role and responsibility, and if fundraising is part of that, then that's made clear initially when they're invited to the board.
Yeah.
Whether that is a personal contribution,
yeah,
or going out and raising money.
Mm-hmm.
If that's not clear up front as to what the expectation is of the founder, then it leaves this really murky, philosophy out there. That I'm not sure. I've been on a board and I didn't know what I was supposed to do. We had no roles and responsibilities. I finally stepped down because I went to the meetings. I listened to the conversations, but I volunteered to do things, but I never had an assigned role or responsibility. And there was no expectation set for me that says, we expect you to contribute, $100 or $150 or $1,000. There's none of that. And so I found that board pretty dysfunctional.
And that's a problem a lot of organizations are having. If you don't, people typically will go out and they'll talk to people that they know, like, and trust and say, hey, I've got this project. This is what I want to try to do. And they throw the idea. It's almost the back of the napkin business plan. And they got a great idea and they're not sure what to do next. And they recruit people without knowing, okay, exactly what is it that I need from them. And, when they get to know you, they have an idea what your talents are. And it's like, Flo is a great organizer. I'm going to have her set the meetings up and organize the task and who's going to be accountable for what. I'm going to have Flo facilitate that. But if that's not, a lot of times it's an open-ended commitment. Well, come join me. Well, we're going to start and we're going to have a meeting. And the parameters of that arrangement aren't out there. It's important to make sure that people have alignment with what you want to do. For starters, it's got to be something that really interests them, because when you're on one of those early boards, the time commitment's going to be heavy. And there are a lot of hours and you're trying to pull things together. But if you got a process to go about doing that, then it's a little easier. But yeah, those open-ended commitments are killer.
Yep.
And you get people that you like. I'm a people person. I like to socialize. And you can get a bunch of socializers, but you need one of those key drivers. I mean, I would have to go back into IRS mode to really push to get things done. And I was successful at it, but it doesn't come naturally. Right. So you want to get people that actually have skills and talents that you lack. You're interested in the board members' networks, of course. But as you get through there, everybody on the team, whether they're a volunteer or whoever, you want to tap into everyone's networks and create a process where you determine, well, okay, what is it that we want to go after and what do we want to do? And some people get involved in too many different things at once, and they bog down because they're trying to do 8 things at once.
Mm-hmm.
And while it's important to have a diverse set of funds from different sources for your sustainability, that doesn't mean you're doing 8 fundraising processes at once. You do them in order and systematically based on the timing, and there's a lot of moving hats, a lot of moving parts.
Right.
Definitely. Yeah, no, I actually kind of talking to what you were saying before, regarding the fundraising. Actually, I wanted to give some news updates on what I've been doing for the past week and a half.
Okay.
So I've been reaching out to Metropolitan State University, which is one of the big, institutions in Denver, especially downtown in the heart of Colorado. I've been able to, reach out to the actual media production, which is run by students, which is, for me, something great to be able to interact with people of my age. So they've been really supportive of the idea. And actually next week, I'm going to have an interview with basically the host of the radio broadcasting channel of the university. And I think, which will tie to what we've been talking about now, for the past 2 months, actually, 2 months has been a one-man project. So I started this on my own. I've, of course, been in contact with the director of the rural community in Malawi, who has been very supportive and, who's been giving me all sorts of information for me to give more details about the projects and make it, make it alive, bring the emotion out and bring, the passion that's going through the project. Nonetheless, I feel with this interview and I feel with the kind of reach that this radio broadcast has in the university, I feel I could, formally establish a group of people that, will be passionate about, a project like this and want to work with me towards achieving the goal.
Yeah.
So I think that'll be, a good step forward.
That'll be excellent. It'll be excellent marketing material.
Yeah, exactly. And then, actually, I wanted to ask, and then, you, Russell, and I have been talking a lot, and we had a previous chat on the Zoom application. I just want to kind of know you guys' background from Anne and Flo. What has been your involvement more specifically in the nonprofit or in the fundraising?
Okay, go ahead, Anne.
I'm not a good person to talk about fundraising. It's not my strength. When I've given speeches, I've got lots of praise and compliments, and they say it was inspiring and all this, and I got very little money. And so I've got to find somebody, I think, that knows how to do it and likes to do it. Or maybe even a second person that goes, when I give a speech, they ask for the fund.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, well, personally, I have not done a lot of fundraising at this point. But that I will get to that place where I will do fundraising. I think the benefit that I have is I have connections. I really have a good base of connections, and I think that'll be helpful. When I talked about this project at my church, a lot of people stepped up and said, yes, we want to help. And so I have a database that I can tap into as we get moving forward.
Definitely.
Yeah.
That's great.
And one of the things I do is help businesses raise capital. Okay.
Okay.
So I can leverage that when it comes to the nonprofit side. As a matter of fact, I had a conversation with a young woman yesterday who started a foundation here in Denver for children. And she's 10 years in, and she has an amazing foundation. And she's looking to grow that. She's looking to expand that. I think she has 3 or 4 houses now, and she's looking to add more in the next 5 years. And so she has a very detailed plan. She just sent me all her information today. And I'm looking at people that I know in the business world who have that consciousness of supporting nonprofits that I can connect her with.
Definitely. Yeah. Especially the network is everything. I've been trying to, build it through the social network. And as you see on the links, one is the actual project on generosity, which is a subsidiary of Indiegogo for the crowdfunding. The other one is the actual, I guess we could call it the umbrella crowdfunding organization, because as I was talking to Russell, in the past, a few weeks ago, this is not going to be the last project I want to do. This is just the beginning, something that could bring me, motivated to explore more innovative technology and more things that can help people that are affordable, that are easily transportable and easy to use. So those are the 3 main components of an innovative technology, especially in communities, third world communities that really don't have the necessary capital of buying, let's say, solar panels or wind turbines. So something like there's actually this other product that I hope once I finish this lighting the warm heart of Africa. It's called Life Straw. And what it does is basically it cleanses the water as you pull it out of this vacuum. It literally looks, I don't know, it's like a cylinder. It's, I don't know, 15 inches long. But I've seen videos of it and it looks amazing. Like I would want to buy it for myself, if something goes wrong, like, I don't know, if I'm in the woods and the Rockies and, in the mountains and I don't know where to find water, I don't have it anymore. I mean, that's something for survival. And especially in Africa, that's survival. It's what it's all about.
Hashi Siegel works with some bottles that purify water, and she's doing some work in Africa. In Tanzania, for example, it might be interesting for you to get in contact with her.
Yeah, with Lisa, not Lisa.
Hashi Siegel was who I was thinking.
Hashi Siegel, yeah, Hashi. Yeah, that's her project. Is I'm
Pure water for all the kids.
I'm trying to think of the company. But yeah, they have a water bottle where you can literally fill it with swamp water and drink it.
Right. Yeah, that sounds very similar to what this Life Straw thing does. So, I mean, it's great that there's so many different companies, organizations, or just people, like innovators that are, launching these incredible products, and that it's a shame that not many people know about it. That's the big, the big issue with it. It's to spread the word.
Yep.
May? We have May Trans on the telephone. She's been quiet. Hi, May.
Hi.
So tell us a little bit about your dream and what you've done so far and where you want to go.
I perform classical piano in nursing homes and assisted living houses. And my dream is to provide more musicians to bring the joy to the elderly through music. And I know there's a lot of starving artists out there, the musicians and all that. So if I can have a organization that can bring the musician to the homes, then we can hopefully help them live a little longer, with joy and happiness. Because when I come and perform my piano, they dance. One who could, they dance around or they clap, and it's really rewarding.
Rosie's House in Phoenix does take their students out to nursing homes. They do that regularly. That's one of their projects of giving back, I think.
Oh, yeah. Okay. And
so there are people that you could reach out to if you wanted. They're very, they're about 20 years old now, the organization. They're still small, but they do reach out to many nursing homes and also give concerts where donors come in and they've given a concert before their give.
What is the name of the organization?
Rosie's House. It's in Phoenix.
Russell, can you send it to me?
Yes, I can find that information for you. I want to put that. I'll put that in here. I have a link for that somewhere. So yeah, it's a real treat to hear Anne play. She's a wonderful pianist. So she plays it's wonderful. It's wonderful. So when it comes to fundraising or nonprofits for where they're situated, there are primarily three areas of things you really look at when it comes to money. One thing is the funding mix, and that's what types of sources do we have for funds. And where a lot of nonprofits have gotten into trouble is they rely strictly on one source or one type of funding, such as grant funding. Grant funding is good for programs. If you've been around for 5 years or more, you can get access to federal funds. They have heavy reporting requirements, And most of the grant funds out there now, whether they come from private family foundations or federal government, most of it's not really multi-year funding. So if somebody's overly relying on grant funding, they have to find new sources to do the same work. If you rely on individual donors, now that's a little bit better because it's usually not restricted. With grants, you have restrictions, especially government grant. You have restrictions on how that money can be used. So the donated funds are better because you've got more flexibility and you can deploy those where you need to deploy them. A lot of funders really aren't interested in paying the bills. They want to write checks for the programs. But I'm of the firm belief that if you don't have a good structure, you can't deliver programs. So hopefully some of that thought process is beginning to change, where funders are looking at grants and looking at total costs of a program, which will include your staff and other things that you need. And successful organizations that I've come across, they invest money in the growth and development of their staff and their board and everybody else to get better at what they do, to strengthen their strengths and carry the message that they carry. Other sources of funding, people, and it's really relationship based. You can look for people with planned giving. Planned giving takes some time to cultivate those relationships and grow the amounts that donors give. One of the things I found out last year that was really surprising is that now a big part of the funding mix for nonprofits, it has to do with fee for services or some type of revenue that they generate. It's over 70% of the money that nonprofits generate now is generated through some sort of fee for service, a value-driven service that they give. Most of the time it's related to the work of the nonprofit, but not always. But that's becoming a bigger part of the mix as far as sustainability. So that was an interesting thing that I found out. But you want to have a good funding mix, and it's got to be the right size for you. So depending on what you're doing and where you're located, where you're situated, and where you're at in your phase of growth and what your plans are, some sources of funding or some types are going to be a little bit better than others. And if you're over relying on one, that could be a problem if that dries up. But if you got too many for your organization in its current stage, you can find yourself trying to fundraise in 6 areas at once and not necessarily doing it all well. So that's one of the factors. The second factor is where the organization is focused. Do you have an inward or outward focus? And what I mean by that is if you have an inward focus, you're always looking internally at what you're doing and trying to make that better, or you're focusing on the needs that you have. And you need to have a focus on that. But the outward focus is sort of customer driven and making sure that you're closely aligned with your donors, with people in the community for the work that you're doing, the people that are actually getting the services, and having that focus. You have to be focused on the needs of the people you're serving to a degree too. So there's a balance to be struck. And if an organization is too inwardly focused, they may be missing out on opportunities for things that their donors or people outside of the organization need. So it's really important to try to keep a balance with that. And then having systems to track your results, whether it's your programs or your operations. How well does the organization run? The programs, you do your evaluation measures to see if the things that you're offering, if your programs are working. And it's really important to be transparent about where you are at any given time, whether things are going well or not necessarily going well. And one mistake a lot of people make in writing funding proposals is they don't look at or they don't talk about any potential challenges that they may have and how they would handle it. You know, see, we're internal optimists, and that's true for anybody that's entrepreneurial. None of us go out with a plan to fail. And that optimism gets us into trouble because we always think we can do things faster. It's been my experience that everything takes twice as much time and twice as much money, and nothing ever completely goes according to plan. So it's really just building a track record of small successes and evolving from there, as opposed to swinging for the fence. There's nothing wrong with swinging for the fence, but having that concept and building on the track record of small successes is important, as well as collaborating with other people. You get more traction when you collaborate with others to actually do your project. Thoughts, questions?
For now, I would say, like, I've been trying to, like, kind of, you know, I mean, I wouldn't say there's like a direct formula for everyone because everybody's different. Everybody has a different trigger to where they say, okay, now I'm going to donate, you know, now I'm going to serve, you know, like the purpose, and I believe in this. So for me, it's been sort of now like my main idea is to basically say, okay, who do I target? Do I target a select number of people that are going to give me a larger amount for the donation? Or am I going to go, for example, on the university side? So more of like the student feel where, you know, we don't have necessarily, you know, a student is not going to give me $200, $300 for the donation. But if I get a large number of a sample of the population, let's say 200 people, and actually I did calculate this, that, I mean, right now we're about 20% of the goal. And the total amount I'm trying to fundraise is $4,500. So it's not, you know, huge, but it definitely is, you know, a good amount of money for people, you know, to ask people. So I thought that calculating how much it's needed left, if 200 people give me average $20 each, that would be basically, you know, we would have reached the goal. So that's what I'm trying to understand, whether to, you know, get 10 people to give me, you know, $200 each, or to get, you know, 200 people to give me $20 each. So it's the scale of, you know, trying to, you know, get a lot of people together or fewer investors. And I'm still trying to figure out, you know, what would be the best course of action for that.
Yeah. And there's a trade-off with that where donors are concerned. It's really about relationship building, though, especially when you start getting into those larger numbers. And keeping in touch with your donors, the reason that you try to keep close contact and keep them aware of what it is that you're doing, finding out how they like to communicate. Some like snail mail. Your older folks would like snail mail. Others would like social media, and you have to make it easy for them to give on social media. So it really depends on your project and the type of person and profiling your donor. And that's something that can be done is to profile who would be interested in that type of project and go from there. But yeah, it depends on the people you meet and where you want to try to reach them. And so that involves looking at some demographics and other things. So the database is critical for that reason, because you have a way to maintain that contact. And what you want to do is just like having a database of customers, a sales database, because as you interact with these folks, you keep them posted. If people are giving you money and they stick with you because you want to retain them and recognize them, you want to grow those donors the same way you'd actually like to sell somebody a product or service. As you go along, you cultivate that relationship so that you can grow your donors, and that's where the larger donors come from over a period of time. It takes a while.
Definitely. No, yeah, I mean, at the beginning, I was sort of like, I mean, as everybody is when you make a project, you're just, over positive or overconfident about the time frame that it's going to take for, raising these funds. So definitely, I thought, oh yeah, 2 months, easy, snap of fingers and it's going to happen. And I definitely see now that it's, much more of an effort and definitely, I've been putting a lot of work into this. And now, every day I'm posting constantly something either on Twitter, on Facebook, about, I would say every week and a half, I, create a new template, a new design for email marketing to be able to send out. For the past 2 weeks, I've been reaching out to the university, which now it's turning out to be, a positive step forward for this interview, especially because I know there's about, I think, 3,000 or 4,000 people to listen in to this podcast. And it's going to be a great way for me to really explain and delve deep into the project. So that's also something great. I've been trying, to just print a few posters and walk around campus, just, to talk to people, to say, hey, have you ever heard about this? Do you know about this technology? Would you like to be interested in it? I've been trying also, for example, to go to the engineering faculty, because this kind of product is something that an engineer would be very passionate about, just because it's something innovative, but it's also very simple. The idea is simple in and of itself, but nobody ever thought about it before this foundation created the product. So I've been trying to target it in different ways for people who would be passionate about knowing about the product, that, are familiar with something that they would be able to make. And at the same time, for people who, have been involved in Africa, have been traveled to Africa, so they know, what it is like, to live in a rural community like that I've visited, and how much this product would change their lives. So I've been trying to kind of, this two-way approach of like reaching passion, but also reaching that sort of, technical objectivity of saying, an engineer looks at this and say, okay, like this is definitely something that could work, rather than building, $100,000 solar panel system for a rural community.
And that reminds me, I had mentioned some people before, but we'll have a discussion offline who would be good people to have a conversation with about a project in Africa. The other thing that I forgot to mention with donors is that, people that have written checks, they're a good source of referrals, because they have friends that are out there doing things. So all of the people that write you a check at some point, ask them who else they would know who'd be interested in the type of project you're doing. And, so that you, as many warm referrals as you can build, that's really important.
Definitely. No, absolutely. Absolutely. That's definitely something, I've been, looking into it. And actually, now that you mentioned it, I've definitely, because, through the platform I get, I receive the emails and contacts, and I've created, a whole email templates regarding the gifts that I can provide, whether it's a written letter from the director who lives in Malawi, whether it's this documentary that actually a person I know has made regarding, the rural community I'm talking about, I'm trying to help. So those are two ways of, engaging with people. And it's actually, it's been successful for me to raise about $400 from 3 different donors, because they were excited to get these gifts and to receive some sort of compensation for their, their belief and their faith in the project. And I think I was kind of, debating it whether to add a third final gift, which would be sort of like a $300 package, where they would get the written letter, the documentary, as well as an actual unit of this Gravity Light product. Now, it won't be easy, because I believe I would have to put some sort of specification saying I can only send it in the US, just because getting these, units is not easy. I do have direct contact with the wholesaler, so he can definitely provide it for me. But nonetheless, it's not something easy. So I would have to, kind of calculate the cost that would go into that, to make it happen.
Okay. Yeah. Any other thoughts, questions, comments?
I've had someone reach out to me that might want to do things like T-shirts and that sort of thing for me. I don't know enough about it to really do it, but it sounds like a very good idea, because she wants to do it for, no very little cost. But then that brings back the problem of branding. You want everything to be the same. And so there's a tie-in with everything that you put out and what you do.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
May, what do you
Very
think?
great possibility.
May, what are your thoughts? May?
Yeah. Earth calling May.
May, are you there? She's there.
Yes, yes, I'm here. Sorry, I unmuted it. I mute myself.
Any thoughts that you have? Questions, comments?
Thank you. No, thank you for letting me join the conversation, even though I don't have my real organization yet. Yeah, so I'm learning something today.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
And
Russell,
Yes.
you said you were going to give us 3 points, and I got 2 of them.
Oh, yeah. Well, the third point is really tracking your results, tracking
Okay.
everything that you do,
Yes,
whether that's programmatically or operationally.
fine.
You have to keep track of your results to make sure that if you're doing things that aren't necessarily working, you want to try to test those out and find out as quickly as you can and as cheaply as you can whether those are going to work or not. There are some things that just take a little bit of time. Building an audience is one of them. But once you get supporters, it's important to ask them about their audiences, people who are like-minded. Who do you know that would be interested in my topic, and to share their audiences and ask other people to share. And that's how you build your audiences out there. And it's creating information products about what you're doing and letting people know that you're doing it and trying to get that shared out in the other networks, because you're building relationships. That's the key driver to everything. Nonprofits is leadership and collaboration, so that you're building those networks and strengthening them and growing them. And that takes a lot of effort.
I went to a lecture with Debbie Allen recently, and she gives you lots of ideas for speaking engagements, how to get a lot of those. And I think that could be a very, very good source. Again, I need to make the speaking engagements pay off. So.
Yeah. Ann loves to go out and speak. Flo loves to go out and speak too. And so that's how I've met a lot of people just going out and doing some small speaking engagements. I've been doing more writing, but I need to get out on the road a little bit more. As part of getting in the different online forums like this one is pretty important to help connect with people. But I need to do some more speaking engagements myself, just so that people understand what it is that I do, and so that I can connect with people. So it's really relationship building, and talking about what we're doing is where we find like-minded people.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, especially the one thing, and I mean, everybody's kind of guilty of it in a sense, because whenever somebody comes forth to you and says, I have this amazing project and everything, and you can say, oh, it's amazing, I love it, I love it, I love it, but until somebody puts down, like money, some sort of like investment, whether it doesn't even have to be money, it can be time, it can be like helping you out. So until those two things, either one of them are met, or both, which would be great, but without those two, for me, like, I've received a lot of likes, which doesn't really mean anything, a lot of attention on Twitter, but again, that doesn't really mean anything. So unless it doesn't convert to an action, and that's what I feel. It just takes a lot of time. And especially for like a new page that I've created, it takes traction to like build that sort of legitimacy. Especially because people that see, right now, I think I have 10 followers, and people are used to see like 10,000, 20,000, 1 million followers, and that's when they're like, oh, okay, like that's where I'll start paying attention. Until then,
yeah. Well, I think one of the things that I've seen successful people do, and I've started trying to do a little bit more of it, but what I need, and I'm building into my page. I just did recorded about a half a dozen videos late last week, and have created some landing pages. But people need a call to action. They really want to be told what it is that you want them to do. And there's three things with any message. Is what is it that I want people to know, feel, and do as a result of hearing that message. And this video series that I'm creating it's a series of reports, short videos that talk to people about various aspects of operating a nonprofit. And I give them information. I've gone all the way back to the beginning and started with an article I posted a couple of months ago called 7 Things to Consider Before You Start a Nonprofit. So I posted that article. I did a video with it. Now I've got a contractor on Elance making it pretty, because I did a lot of materials myself and I created a course. I want it to look good, but I'm giving information to people that is valuable for them, and what the call to action comes a few videos in. And it's really designed to tell people about my 4 steps to building a high-performance nonprofit course. But I don't dive right in and ask for the sale. But you're giving people something of value, giving people some things to think about. And when you create your message, it's really a question of, okay, what is it that I want them to do? Do I want them to look at the project? Do I want them to look at some aspect of what I'm doing? Do I want them to stay engaged with me? And you definitely want them to stay engaged. But do you want them to request more information? Do you want them to donate money? And so it's really, the message has to have sort of a goal. Each message would have a goal in mind as far as getting people involved. And so a lot of times, and I say on the video, click on the button below to download the report. And that's what I want them to do in that first video, is to download the report. 7 things to consider before you start a nonprofit. And so the rest of the series kind of goes that way as well. But I'm working on some more videos and putting together a broadcast schedule so that I'm doing broadcasts. Eventually, by the beginning of April, I'll be doing a nonprofit minute. So I'll be doing a broadcast every day in addition to these bi-weekly sessions, and I may start having these a bit more frequently. And I'm already doing the nonprofit chat with Cinevision Leadership Foundation. That's weekly. So it's given some thought to what action you want people to take. It's nice that they're inspired, but what we want to do is say, okay, by giving X number of dollars, you can help a family of this size.
Right.
Or provide X for X client. And so there's just a number of different approaches there. Flo, would love to hear from you. I've been doing a lot of talking there. I see you smiling and nodding, and this lady's brilliant. We've known her for a while, and so why don't you chime in and tell us what you're thinking? And
yeah, well, I think connections is what helps you to build that reputation, and people get to know who you are, what you're doing, and get to be share your passion for what you want to do. And when people share your passion, then they want to support it. I did see your crowdfunding page, and it looks good. Crowdfunding is a great tool. The challenge you have is you have to really stimulate that crowd. You have to bring that crowd, and then you bring the crowd, and the activity starts, and then people want to be part of something because they see something happening. I know a lot of people who have tried crowdfunding. Some have been successful and some of them haven't. because they thought if they just put it out there, you know, magic would happen and people were going to jump in and start donating. And it doesn't really work that way. You have to bring that crowd. You know, you have to get your own people to come on board with you and support you and create the activity and get the attention to get other people to jump in. But it's a great tool if you use it. Yeah, it's a great tool. So yeah, I am just absolutely excited because this woman I met yesterday was a connection from someone, a friend of mine, and then she comes in and says, "Oh, I want you to meet this other person." And I'm working with another group that in a business setting, helping them raise capital, but they also, as part of what they're doing for their for-profit business, is creating a nonprofit that is going to benefit from their for-profit business. And you know, when I looked at this woman that I met yesterday and what she's doing and this business that's creating a nonprofit, I'm thinking I need to put these two together. Mm-hmm. They need to collaborate. And so when you can find that synergy with what you're doing and what someone else is doing, and they're open to collaborating, magic happens. Yeah. One of the things I enjoy doing is creating that collaboration, introducing people, connecting people, and watching the collaboration happen.
Definitely. No, yeah, for sure. No, it definitely seems I need to find the right people who, you know, want to believe in the project and, you know, want to spend time, of course, you know, as I said, you know, it can be either money or time. And what I need right now, I feel, to get the donation, I need people to work with me. Kind of like, you know, as like a, you know, you need to open the first door to be able to open the second. So.
Well, you know, one thing that I've really given a lot of thought to as far as fundraising, and I emphasize that because when you go to people and say, well, I help nonprofits build capacity, their eyes glaze over. You know, but when you say, and when somebody asks me, what do? I say, oh, well, I help nonprofits find more money and support for their causes so they can help more people.
Right.
That's just magic. Ding, 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 cash. But you know, whether you're running a for-profit business or a nonprofit, when people write you a check, they're betting on your team.
Exactly.
The people, if you get the right people, then you'll be able to create that critical mass. And it's about the people you have on your team. They look at your team and they say, can this group of people pull the trigger on what it is that you say you're going to do?
Right.
How involved are they in that? And so it's really connecting with other people. There's something going on tomorrow night that I'll have a talk with you about offline. And if you're open and you'd like to come, I'd like to have you be my guest tomorrow night, and just to meet some people. And so that's what I do.
Network.
Yeah. And Ann and Flo are part of what I'm talking about. So it's a really magical. Well, it's magical in a lot of ways, but my thinking has expanded since I came into contact, and I've met people all over the place who are just phenomenal in their field. And the mentors and the partners, the accountability partners, and the sequencing that you learn and you get when you partner with these folks is phenomenal. And so
community.
Yeah.
Communities. You know,
yeah. And so
it's a community where people support people. And we ask the question, what do you do and what do you need? Because our goal is to help you find that next thing that you need to be successful.
Yeah. And it's really about service. And this is what people that want to start nonprofits are about. They have a service first mindset. And so with a service first mindset, sometimes it's difficult to ask for what you need. But you're violating the law of circulation if you don't ask what you need.
Absolutely.
And the law of circulation says that you must receive in proportion to what you give.
Giving, yes.
And so if you're violating the law of circulation, you'd be a little out of balance. But the service first mentality is something that's starting to get some traction. It really works in business. It really works. And I've become a firm believer in that. And it's been my experience over the last few years. And I think it's workable. And when it comes to the sort of challenges that nonprofits are taking on, it's critical. It's critical. And
one of the things you talked about earlier was building a team. And I think that people in the nonprofit sector has this misnomer about exactly that, putting together a team. They don't think that because it's called a nonprofit, and it's really not a nonprofit. That's a misnomer. You're a business. It's a business.
Right.
And as a business, you should be thinking about making a profit. There's no, and you can correct me on this, Russell, that people think that you have to have zero balance at the end of a year in a nonprofit. And it's a fallacy. Okay? So if you think about your project, your charity, whatever, as a business, I coach people every day on, they want to raise capital. Okay, great. I can work with you on that. But I want to see your pitch deck. I want to see your financials. I want to see, and a part of the pitch is, I want to know who your team is. Who is on your team? Who is your CEO? Who is your CFO? Who is your attorney? Who are the business people that, who's your strategist? It's a lot of time we get people who start businesses and they're very technical. They can technically talk to what they want to create or build, but they're not business people. And that's what gets them in trouble. So you have to have a team. Same with a foundation. That's why you have a board, you have a team, and it has to be people who can help to move the organization forward to be successful. So I discourage people from thinking that I'm a nonprofit, so no. You're a business. Think of it as a business and build a business.
Definitely. I agree. I definitely agree that you need to have that business mentality to keep going forward.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's the thing that people overlook, in addition to having things other than your programs being a cost. It's an investment in delivering the program. The other, and what she's talking about is tax status. That's the only difference.
Yes.
If you spend more than you bring in, at some point it's unsustainable, and you close your doors.
Right.
A nonprofit doesn't mean no money. It means for a motive other than making a profit. And you want to have a surplus too. That's something for those lean times when you might have a gap in your funding.
Yeah. So
trying to build a surplus is something that should be built into your plan as a nonprofit.
Right.
It's really been great. We're coming up close, I think.
2 minutes.
Wrong. No, I've got. This has been a very short hour.
Yeah.
Been good.
The time always flies, and so would any of you like to leave our audience with some parting thoughts, because this broadcast will go up online for sharing.
Definitely.
I just gave you my parting thoughts on nonprofits and profitability.
I would say, with all the great things that are going on in the world right now, and the reason why I was inspired to do this, and one of the things, it was many factors included, but in one of my classes back in university, it was called Global Entrepreneurship. It was talking about a social business. So that's where I see, as Flo, when you were talking about that you have to have a business mentality to be able to run a nonprofit successfully in the long run. For me, I see a nonprofit and a profit business to kind of merge, to have a match, a marriage and be a social business. So, a business that's the whole purpose is to achieve a social cause, to be able to help people, but at the same time be, financially responsible. So to be able to, exactly do what they're supposed to break even, to survive, to not be able to, go in debt. And that's something that, as a model, I thought it was really interesting. which I hope in the future, I already have a few ideas, but it's very, it's very vague. But once this fundraiser is done, I really want to make sure that this sort of, gravity light, that this sort of product will be able to become a social business, not here in America, but there in Malawi, where people could, learn how to build them and, be able to, provide them to other villages around their communities. So that definitely can have ripple effects if it's done properly.
Well, there are other business forms that I addressed in another article I wrote, 7 alternatives to starting a nonprofit. So I'll have to point you toward that. May, any closing thoughts?
Hello?
Ann, how about you? Any closing thoughts?
Yes, I will say that I'm thinking of ways that I can raise money myself. You said you want to do more speaking. Well, I want to do more writing. I have some things out there, and a portion of that will go to the organization. And there are just a lot of things. I hope that the speaking will take off. I think I have some interesting things to say so that people will want to listen. And again, if I'm paid for speaking, then part of that can go to the organization, even if I don't do very well at getting donations, which I'm going to get better. I'm going to find somebody that knows how to do that. Yeah. I know I need an infrastructure, and that's what I'm really thinking about hard now.
Okay.
Have you talked to Wendy Lipton-Dibner?
Who, please?
Have you talked
yes.
to Wendy?
Yes, Wendy's been very helpful to me.
Good.
Yeah.
She's the one that got my Twitter page going and had them set up the I'm Watching Ann, and I'm still posting things just to let people get to know me and some of my interests. Because I think it helps if, how you all say know, like, and trust. Well, I hope that can be done as well.
Right.
So, Ann, I'm looking forward to heading off to that sponsorship boot camp at the end of the month. And Roberto just let me know that Wendy is going to be there.
Oh, Wendy will be there. Great.
If we get Wendy, we're probably going to get Hal too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's going to be that'll be an amazing thing.
Yeah.
May, any closing thoughts before we sign off?
Thank you very much for your time and all the I learned from all of you. It's incredible. So the infrastructure and how to get the people's attention, right? And the passion. I agree. We have to have a group of people who have the same passion with us. So I'm going to get there hopefully one of these days.
Yeah, well, May, I'm putting the link up for my online scheduler, and so whenever you get a time, it's just basically it's russcalendar.com, and so my schedule's crazy, but this tracks it, and so at times and days that are good for you, just grab a day, and we'll have to get together at some point. It's been a long time since I've seen you.
Yes. Okay.
All right. And all of the things we talked about are included in that online course I mentioned, 4 Steps to Building a High-Performance Nonprofit. I put a link up there for that. So with that, Ann Lorimer, Flo Lattery, Andrea Fasoli, and May Tran, I'd like to thank you for coming here and allowing me to be of service to you. Flo, I'll see you tomorrow night. Hopefully I'll see you too, Andrew and Andrea, and we'll cycle back around. For now, this is the Nonprofit Culture of Success bi-weekly meetup. We'll be back here on March 15th with a subject equally compelling, hopefully. If you've got questions, comments, or things that you'd like to talk about, or would like to come on and talk about your project so that people can get to know who you are, stay tuned to this channel. And for now, this is Russ Dennis signing off and wishing you difference makers.